You were taught from an early age that there is a God watching your every move, that good is rewarded, that evil is punished, and that in the end, it all comes down to a divine accounting that will decide your fate. But today, you will discover that this is one of the greatest distortions in human history, that the concept of good and evil sold by religions over the centuries is not only mistaken, it prevents you from understanding the true purpose of your existence. What you will learn today may shock your mind. It contradicts almost everything you've ever heard about right and wrong, and it is not me saying it, but the revelations of the Seth material, one of the deepest and most transformative teachings ever channeled. The original material is preserved for study at Yale University in the United States. Serious consciousness researchers continue to analyze its implication. After all, what if good and evil were not opposing forces battling for control of your soul? What if, in truth, everything you experience, even what you call a mistake, were part of a much larger creative game in which you are the true author? Stay with me, because what you are about to understand here can radically change the way you view your own life from today onward. It is curious to think how we spend our whole lives believing that good and evil are absolute entities, almost like external forces fighting up above to decide the fate of humanity. But the truth is that good and evil are not out there. They are projections born from the very level of consciousness of the observer. A child may think it is wrong not to get the toy they want, whereas a wise person understands that what seems like a loss can sometimes be a protection. Everything depends on the lens through which the experience is viewed. It is not the event itself that defines its value, but the way the mind interprets it. Seth was one of the first to clearly expose this vision. He challenged traditional thought. He stated that reality is not a cosmic war between light and darkness. It is a complex dance of creative experiences. Good and evil, he said, are provisional definitions created by a limited mind to try to organize the infinite, just as heat and cold are relative perception. What is right or wrong also varies according to the understanding of the one living it. To see this in practice, think of something simple. A boss fires an employee. From the fired person's point of view, this may seem like a terrible evil, but months later, they may discover an opportunity they would never have had if they had remained stuck in that job. The evil revealed itself as a portal to something greater. The consciousness that observes the whole picture perceives that the initial judgment was limited. That is precisely why Seth invites us to expand our consciousness, so that we stop being victims of shallow interpretation. Good and evil are not divine sentences. They are fragile classifications created by a mind that still cannot see the whole picture. When vision expands, judgment gives way to understanding. It is like stepping out of a dark room and suddenly realizing there was always a vast garden outside. It is at this point that we begin to see how moral judgment imposed by religions can imprison the soul in an artificial duality. But before discussing that, it is important to understand how these doctrines created invisible bars in our perception. From an early age, most of us were taught that there is an invisible court observing every thought, every desire, every slip. Traditional religions created a moral architecture where right and wrong were rigidly defined as if the soul were a child incapable of learning without the fear of punishment. What Seth shows us is the exact opposite. The soul is not fragile but curious, exploratory, deeply creative. It did not come into the world to be watched. It came to experience. When religious morality imposes its weight, it does something subtle. It transforms the natural desire to grow into guilt. How many times have you caught yourself thinking, "Did I sin, even without having harmed anyone?" This is the paralyzing effect of external judgment. The soul by nature does not know guilt. It knows consequence, learning, expansion. Guilt, as Seth teaches us, arises from the distortion of free will, not from a real spiritual deviation. Think of how many choices you avoided making for fear of doing something wrong. Relationships avoided, projects shelved, dreams abandoned. All of this in the name of a rule that may no longer make sense for your current journey. Religious moral judgment creates mental borders that limit the soul's natural movement. When we do not allow ourselves to err, we also do not allow ourselves to grow. Seth explains that the universe does not operate like a divine report card with grades of approval or failure. It is a great laboratory of experience. Every choice generates a new field of learning. There is no universal list of right and wrong. Only different paths, all valid for those who seek the expansion of consciousness. Because we are eternal learners in this cosmic laboratory, every experience, whether labeled good or bad, carries a much deeper function than we can imagine at first glance. Understanding begins to change radically. It is fascinating to realize how life is not a sequence of rights and wrongs, but a vast field of continuous creation. Every experience, pleasant or painful, is a creative act of consciousness in its journey of self-knowledge. There is no waste, no irreparable error. There is only the soul experiencing the infinite shades of existence, like a painter facing an endless canvas. How many times have you lived situations that at the moment seemed disastrous, but later proved transformative? The firing that led to your own business, the end of a relationship that made way for a much more aligned love. These situations, initially labeled negative, carry within them the seed of expansion. Seth asserts there is no coincidence. There are only intentional creations, even if unconscious. The problem is that we have been conditioned to judge every event based on immediate comfort. If something hurts, it is bad. If something pleases, it is good. But the soul operates in a much broader field where even discomfort is an invitation to evolution. When someone faces betrayal, the initial pain can be devastating. But often, this event forces a deep dive within, leading to maturity that would never come in the comfort zone. Seth invites us to abandon this narrow vision and understand life as a sophisticated training field for consciousness. Pain in this sense is not punishment. It is a tool. Joy, on the other hand, is not a prize. It is a reflection of momentary alignment. Everything is learning. Every learning is creation. When we accept this vision, we stop fearing the unknown and begin to dance with it. It is this dance with the unknown that reveals another crucial point. There is no eternal punishment awaiting our stumbles. What exists is the continuity of experience. Resistance or flow defines the next step of our journey. One of the greatest liberations brought by the Seth material is the end of the idea of eternal punishment. For centuries, we were taught to fear a divine settling of accounts, as if our choices were recorded in an unrelenting book. According to Seth, the universe is not a tribunal, but a living school where every soul learns through its own creation. There is no eternal hell, but states of consciousness where we experience the results of our own vibrational choices. It is important to understand that everything we resist tends to persist. Resistance is not punishment from without, but a blockage we create by trying to fight the natural flow of our expansion. Someone who carries anger for years is not being punished by higher forces. They are resisting their own well-being. Unresolved emotion is like an open faucet, wasting creative energy that could be used to grow. Seth explains that every soul has absolute freedom to create its experience. When we fixate on fear, guilt, resentment, we generate dense and repetitive reality. It is not punishment. It is the mirror of our internal vibration. If we insist on a negative focus, we continue spinning in the same spiral until we decide to look within and change the pattern. When we release this resistance, something magical happens. Creative energy flows again. Situations change. New opportunities appear. A sense of lightness returns. It is like a muscle relaxing after years of tension. Instead of fearing punishment, we should ask, where am I resisting my own expansion? When we understand this dynamic, we see what really lies behind what we call evil in our existence. It is not a dark force wanting to destroy us, but reflections of ignorance, fear, disconnection from who we truly are. What we call evil is often just a symptom of disconnection. Seth explains that no one is born to be evil. Destructive actions, selfish behavior, painful choices almost always arise from fear, insecurity, ignorance about our true nature. When a soul forgets its creative and divine origin, It acts like someone lost in the dark trying to find its way blindly. How many times have we seen people hurting others simply because they were wounded inside? The aggressor is someone dominated by unhealed pains, limiting beliefs, existential void. It is not pure malice, as religions portray. It is internal confusion manifesting in distorted behavior. It is the old saying, hurt people hurt people. Seth goes deeper. He says at the core, every being is seeking love even in the most misguided way. The frantic pursuit of power, control, money, dominance is a desperate attempt to fill the void of a disconnected soul. The pain of forgetting who we are creates an illusion of separation that generates behaviors labeled as evil. That is why true healing does not come through guilt or punishment, but through the awakening of consciousness. When a person remembers their true nature, that they are a creative extension of the universe, destructive behaviors lose their force. What once seemed impossible to change ceases to make sense. It is like someone who believed they lived in darkness and suddenly finds the switch. The light was always there. The missing piece was the decision to turn it on. Evil does not vanish because it was fought, but because it loses space and the soul returns to its origin, full consciousness of who it really is. And it is in this remembrance that we encounter another fundamental point, the distorted vision that religions created of God, turning the infinite creator into an amplified reflection of human fears. From the moment humans tried to understand the universe, they created an image of God similar to themselves, a being with desires, moods, preferences, rewards, punishment. For centuries, religions reinforced this idea of God as a superhuman on a throne distributing blessings to some and punishments to others. Seth invites us to break free from this childish vision of divinity. From his perspective, the whole does not judge. It does not punish or take offense. It simply creates. Seth explains that the true God is not an external character, but the creative energy that pulses within each of us. We are extensions of that creative source, manifesting unique aspects of existence. The whole does not demand blind worship. It does not tally errors and merits. It allows creation to continue always expanding, always in motion. There is no list of universal rules. There is the exercise of infinite creativity. Think of an artist painting a canvas. He does not get angry at the canvas if something does not go as planned. He simply adjusts, paints over, experiments with new strokes. The source does not punish its creations. It observes, allows, learns together. Judgment was a human invention to make sense of what was not yet understood. Seth warns that this punitive vision of God, upheld by many religions, served more to control human behavior than to connect people to their divine essence. By projecting human fears onto God, man created a reflection of himself, not of the source. Many remain trapped in guilt, fear, insecurity, before a divinity that is not judging but creating. When we understand we are free creators within infinite energy, the most liberating question emerges. What is the soul's free will? How far can we go with this freedom? Seth gives one of the most powerful keys to understanding existence. The soul has absolute free will. This means more than choosing daily actions. It means the soul has total freedom to create experience, explore realities in varied, unexpected ways. There are no fixed rules, no mandatory tracks. Creation is always in our hands. Often people feel trapped by destiny, as if their lives were written by external forces. According to Seth, we write the script. Before incarnating and during physical existence, we can alter paths, change decisions, transform situations that seemed immutable. It is like playing a game where the rules are built as you play. For example, someone may be born with musical inclination, but choose to develop business skills. No choice is wrong. They are aspects of creative potential being explored. Each path brings unique lessons, enriching consciousness. The soul can always redirect its journey. Flexibility is total. Seth asserts, the more consciousness expands, the more we understand creative freedom. We stop asking external permission to live as we wish and take full responsibility for our reality. It is liberating and challenging to realize everything is in our hands. If we can do anything, there is no one left to blame. When we grasp this freedom, an even deeper perception emerges. We do not live in one reality only. The soul is multidimensional, operating in layers of existence beyond what our physical eyes perceive. Now tell me, how many of your decisions were guided by fear of error? How many times did you refrain from experimenting, taking risks, or expressing yourself because you carried the weight of invisible judgment, believing you might be sinning? What if all that were merely a limited interpretation created by minds that did not comprehend the soul's true nature? What if from today you saw every experience, even those you called arrows, as a field of creation and learning? What would change in your life if you truly knew there is no divine tribunal controlling your steps, but an infinite consciousness inviting you to create, grow, and expand? Tell me in the comments, what was the greatest lesson this perspective brought you? I want to hear your view and exchange ideas on this journey of expansion. If this content made sense, subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and stay with me, because we still have so much to explore together in this fascinating universe of mystical spirituality and conscious creation.